Hello, it's Sandy here with another card for Craft Roulette. This week, or actually last Friday, the parameters were for Project 4-bar card, which I had no clue what that was until I watched the episode. The colors were Craft Store. The element was sewing or sews, and the random was stencil. I thought these were actually pretty easy parameters, so I decided I would jump in again this week. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. You can also subscribe to my channel to be notified of future videos. You can follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdill or on my blog, www.sandycogdilldesigns. All right, let's get started. I'm going to start on my background first. So I've got a piece of cardstock cut 3.5 by 5 inches. And my goodness, is that a small surface to work with. But you know what? It was kind of a fun challenge. I do like that size, and I probably would do more of those in the future. Anyway, I like to temporarily adhere my cardstock down to my work surface. I'm working on a glass mat, which I would be lost without. It just works best for me. It's also magnetic, so that does help sometimes when I'm working on larger pieces. Anyway, I'm going to start with Lawn Fawn's Cloudy Stencil and a little bit of Tumbled Glass Distress Oxide ink. I'm just going to move my stencil around to get different cloud shapes and go about 3/4 of the way down on that piece of cardstock. Now I've got a piece of kind of a light blue turquoisey color. I've cut it using Lawn Fawn Stitched Wavy Backdrop Landscape die. I'm going to use that for my little waves behind my gnomes. I don't need to ink up the entire thing, but I do need to get some type of inking on those little waves so that there's a little bit of dimension and interest on it. I am using Mermaid Lagoon to touch up those edges, and all I'm doing is just inserting a piece of scrap white card in those openings and just adding a little bit of ink to those. Now that I have those inked, I need to determine exactly where I want those to fall on my card. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of eyeball it, flip it over, glue them down, and then I am just going to trim that excess cardstock off around the outside edges and down across the bottom. I'm going to create my beach using a piece of brown, it's kind of a light brown cardstock. I'm also going to use my Lawn Fawn Simple Stitched Hillside Border to get that cut out. And then I'm going to do a little bit of inking on the top with some Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink. I like to do that on most of the things I die cut, is just add a little bit of color to the edges. It just adds a little bit of dimension and just makes it just a little bit extra. To finish up my background, I'm going to just glue my little sandy area down on those waves where I think it's right. I'm not worried too much about the length of that sandy area because I'm going to take it to my paper trimmer, trim off that bottom edge, and then with my scissors I will just clip off those sides and my background is done. I think that's such a pretty background with all those blues and browns. Ooh, I could go to that beach. Now we get to start coloring. And I absolutely love the Gnomes by Trinity Stamps. This is from the stamp set Summer Gnome Fun. And I'm going to start out with the skin. The Copic markers that I'm using are E000 and R01. For her little towel and all of the oranges on this little gnome and her little friend. The oranges are, let's see, Y15, Y38, and YR07. This kind of makes a pretty orange, and as far as the parameters of craft store colors, I decided to go very literal, and I'm using Hobby Lobby colors. So I think the bulk of this card has got that bright orange and that bright blue for my craft store colors. The Copic markers that I'm using for the blue are B16, B18, and B24. Sometimes people want to know what kind of paper I'm using for my ink blending, and I have used Express It blending paper for years now. I have tried all different kinds of things, and this one just works the best for me. I don't have a lot of bleeding, and I find that my ink stays wet just a little bit longer, so I can do a little bit more blending with it. Okay, we're going to give her a pink bikini because I'm pretty darn sure that that is her favorite color. I am going to be using RV10, RV04, and RV17. For her hair, I decided to go with grays, even though I kind of wanted to do like a blondish color. But I thought, well, with her little buddy over there with his gray beard, I thought, well, we'll make her hair gray also. So the colors I'm using for that are C0, C02, I'm sorry, just C2, C4, and C6. And here is where I realized I don't have the dies for this particular stamp set. I can't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, so I had to fussy cut, which is one of the things I absolutely do not like doing. Sometimes I will get out my scan and cut, but for two little images, it just wasn't worth the hassle. So I did wind up fussy cutting these little guys, and I have put that die set on my wish list for Trinity stamps for the next time I order. Ugh. And my little gnome with the inner tube has the exact same colors as I used on my little sunbathing one. They're a cute couple, and they like to be matchy-matchy, so we left them that way. I'm going to start playing around with where I want my little couple to be on the sand. And luckily, the sentiment that I'm using for this particular card is included with that stamp set. So I will go ahead and get that placed kind of centered in on my card and then bring it over to my Misty. I've got my background placed in my Misty, and I'm just going to ink it up with some black ink. I had thought about maybe heat embossing it with some black ink, but I didn't want to worry about any specks being in that sky. It's such a pretty sky that I didn't want to mess that up at all. Now that I've got it glued all together, it's time for me to start making my card base. And again, this is a 4-bar card, so it's a completely different measurement than what I'm used to. I have cut down a piece of white cardstock to 5 by 7 inches. I'm going to score that in the center, which is 3.5, and then give it a good crease with my bone folder. Once I have that card base made, I will go ahead and glue my little gnome card front on it. I generally use glue. I'm a glue girl through and through. So it's pretty rare that I use the double-sided adhesive tape just because I have had problems with them losing their stickiness after a little bit. I don't know if you have that same problem, but I find it really frustrating. So I usually use glue when it makes the most sense. And that pretty much does it for this card. I think I hit my parameters pretty well. So to review that, for project, it was 4 bar, which I did make. The colors were craft store, which is my favorite craft store, Hobby Lobby. The element was sewing, so I used the waves and the hillside borders, and they have little stitching on the top. And then my random was the stencil I used for the clouds. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this process video. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up. You can subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos. You can also follow me on Instagram or on my blog, www.sandycogdaledesigns.com. Thanks so much for stopping by today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.